welcome back everybody. So I haven't done one of these videos for a while, but I feel the Lord telling me that I should start kind of getting back into it. I'm not sure if they're going to be every day, once a month, once a week, I don't know. I'm just going to do it when the Lord tells me, makes me, feel that it's time to do one. So anyways, this video, the main purpose is just for me to talk about my journey, my path to God, so how I was saved. Um, to me, it's very interesting because I think there are three distinct moments in my life where God came to me and He offered a hand when I was down and I was at a low point of life or I was in big trouble. And He kind of reached up, picked me up, and He did save me. But the first two times that He saved me, it didn't stick. And it really makes me think of the parable of the farmer. And I put that parable up on the screen. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the point is, the first time I was saved, I think was like verse 4. It is the seeds were just kind of put onto the footpath, and the birds came. They ate the seeds before the seeds even really got to take any root, before they sprouted, anything like that. So I'll tell that story, and then we'll go on to each. So when I was basically, the way God saved me is because my life was very tied into drugs, drugs, drinking, sex, just addiction in general. So my addiction probably started when I was about 12. Fifth grade is the first time I ever smoked weed. And I remember from there, smoking weed didn't become a consistent thing, but it just kind of got me in starting to experiment with things in life. So shortly after that was the first time I ever drank like hard liquor. I stole a bottle of Bacardi rum, and me and my friends drank that together. And then sex addiction probably started for me when I was in seventh grade. I think I was 12, maybe I just turned 13, something like that. But definitely seventh grade. So in that range, I started to get into, like, addictions had just started taking a hold of me. So it started fifth grade. By seventh grade, I would just say I was like fully doing stuff to fill the void. And I think, to me, addiction is always something that I use to fill the void. And the void to me is love. So in life, when I had no love, my family is like not a close family, not like a lovey-dovey family. Um, and so for me, that was always just something I didn't really feel that anybody loved me. Both my parents worked every day, and they worked a lot, so I didn't really see them. I saw my dad, I basically never saw. My mom, I saw like a couple hours a day. I don't know, maybe like around dinner time to the end of the night. So for me, love is just always something I just kind of felt was missing out of my life. So all the addictions and stuff are what filled that for me. They kind of made me forget some of the like traumatic things. They made me feel somebody else cares about me, like sex. That's how sex definitely set in on me. It was like, oh, if this girl's having sex with me, she loves me, and that felt good to me. So anyways, so the addictions matter because they just kind of scaled up as I aged. So by the end of high school, I had just turned 18, and through high school, the thing with drugs is they are the gateway drug, right? That concept is true. And for me, like I said, fifth grade started with weed, and I think the first time I tried another drug is around seventh or eighth grade. I think I did mushrooms, so shrooms. And then from there, it just kind of opened the floodgate. Through high school, I did all types of drugs, like cocaine became a big one. I tried meth, but thankfully, that didn't really sit with me. But cocaine and weed definitely were big ones for me. And then drinking just kind of progressively scaled up. So by the time I want to say, I think I was a sophomore. So I'm not sure if I was 15 or 16, but by that point I was just smoking like multiple times a day. Like I would just go high to school, and then I never did like super hard drugs at school, but I would do like those things I would do after school. But I would still go literally high to class every day. I remember one day, me and my friends, when the school year started, there was four of us. We were in a car and we were deciding if we should smoke before school, and three of us were like, no way, like it's too sketchy. It's the first day. Everybody's going to be watching us, and like, and then our one friend, I just remember his being like, no, today's the day we need to smoke the most because this is the day that the teacher, she'll know whoever we are today. So if we go like extra wasted today to school, then she'll just think that's our base personality. And I was just like, and we were like, wow, genius. But anyways, I say these things not to like glorify them, but I say them because just to explain the point of life that I was at, right? To explain the lifestyle that I was at. Since that point, also another thing to put in context of how truly much God did save me is since that time of close friends that I had, like guys who would like sleep at my house, like girls who would come over and hang out at my house. There have been 4 of them who have died from drug overdoses. So that just kind of shows you like I was in that life, and the people who I was closely associating with and hanging out with every single day and like building my social network around, like a lot of them have gone on to have issues because there was no saving for them. But anyway, so that's the setup. How I finally got saved was to support drug use, you need money. And for me, that money came in the form of selling drugs myself. So that's how I would support my addictions, is I would sell drugs. And so I did that through the majority, probably around that sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, I would say I did it. And I won't go into that too crazy much, but I did it to a significant enough point that it supported my addictions. And anyways, one day, me and my friends, we used to party every weekend, and we went to a party, and parties often get broken up. The cops will come and just kind of tell everybody to go home. And that day, we unfortunately got the attention of the cops because we had a beer bong that we were carrying out of the party back to the car. And so anyways, the cops pulled us over, and well, kind of, like we sat in the car and they came up. So I don't know. It wasn't really like pulled us over so much as just stopped us to talk, and we happened to be in the car. And anyways, the problem was that car was just loaded with drugs, loaded with all types of stuff, like scales and bags, and it's a lot different. Getting busted with possession of a drug is very different than getting busted for possession with the intent to distribute or sell. I don't know what they would call it everywhere. But anyway, so we got busted like that. And it should have just been a huge turning point of my life, right? Like, basically, I should have got arrested there. I should have definitely had a record. I just turned 18, so I just became an adult, which also would have significantly changed the sentencing and stuff like that. And I was on the fence about joining the military. It was kind of like, the reason for me I was thinking about it was as I knew that my life was going in a way that I didn't want it to, or it maybe not even I didn't want it to, it wasn't a healthy direction in life. If I would have went to college, then I knew I would have just partied, like I would have kept doing all the things, right? I would have stayed doing drugs, partying, sex, some point probably unplanned pregnancy, some point probably, OD, some point, there's just so many things that could have happened if I would have kept down that route. So I was kind of on the fence about joining the military. And so I was at that point where I was on the fence about joining the military, and then this thing happened. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like if I somehow get out of this, right? Like if I somehow get out of this is a sign. Like this is somebody's looking out for me. So anyways, what happens is the cops just let us go. Nothing happened. They took our drugs, they took money. Oh, that was the other thing. We had like I had, I don't know, probably $800 in cash, in like just small cash on me. So anyways, they took the money, took the drugs, but then they just let us go, and nothing ever happened from that. And so that was the first time to me, like that was definitely like God stepped in, intervened, and saved me from just a lot of badness, And after that, I 100% decided I'm going to the military. So I went to the military, and the way that helped is to go get into the military. They drug test Actually, funnily enough, later in my journey in the military, I actually became the person who coordinated. Like I was the drug person for my unit, so I would coordinate the drug tests and everything and perform them. So it's just funny how those things work out. But anyways, so after that, I dedicated myself to the military, got clean on drugs, started working out again and everything like that. And then, yeah, I shipped off. And like I said, since then, I lost quite a few friends that were not fortunate enough to get away from that environment, get away from that situation. I've lost them to drugs and, other things. And that's just overdoses, let alone like, DUIs and dying and stuff like that. So anyways, first time God saved me. Second time God saved me was I was in the military, and it was right before my first deployment. And it was basically just when I got in the military, I had got away from the drugs. I got away from just that lifestyle. And when you first get in the military, things are very regimented. You're very under control. You're locked down, right? Like you're always being supervised. You're always being watched all throughout training. And in my case, training was a long time. After basic training, you go on to your like specialty, whatever your job is, that training. And for me, that training was very long. So I was in training for like over a year. And then after that training, I went to airborne school, which added another few months. So it's just like I was in training a very long time. And when you're in training, there's no chance to really get into trouble in terms of partying. Like you're not as free to just go out whenever you want, go drink. You're not as free to do those things. So that helped me get away from that stuff. But once my training was over and I got to my first unit, I was in 82nd Airborne, so in Fort Bragg. And partying in the military is a big thing. I remember we used to have this billboard that it was like a football scoreboard. And if it would make it to 82 days, because 82nd Airborne, 82 days, we would get a day off, right? And it would keep scaling up. Like we could get 1 day, 2 days, 3-day weekend, right? And the most depressing thing ever is that, I had been there for a long time before I saw that before those numbers would go to double digits. And I remember a lot of times when it would literally just stay at 0 for like weeks. And what that number represented was how many days since the last alcohol-related fatality. And so anyways, I'm saying that one is just to kind of explain the environment that I was in. So 82nd, during Iraq War, when all that stuff popped off, it was the most deployed unit. There was a lot of people on that base who had already been deployed multiple times. Also, when I joined, I think I got there 2005, something around 2005. So people had just got back off their first, maybe their second rotation to overseas Iraq, in general Iraq. And when they get back, yeah, you have tons of money in your pocket because when you're deployed, you can't really spend it. And then you come back and, there's a lot of guys who saw stuff that, you don't want to see. There's a lot of people who just like me, like they had a lot of addictions in their life. And that year of forced sobriety sometimes is good, but then sometimes a lot of people fall back into it. So anyways, that's why that scoreboard, the number would not go high because people were just making bad choices. And anyway, so I found myself in that environment. Drugs, or not drugs, and the Army did keep me away from drugs. I didn't do drugs while I was in the Army. So, but drinking was the acceptable thing. So drinking was still acceptable in the Army, so it was a lot harder for me. Drugs, what kind of made staying away from drugs easy was the fact that they were forbidden in the military. And, I follow the rules. I'm a reasonably rule-following person. So anyways, that was easy, but drinking is, that's huge in the military. That's just part of it, basically. So that I found myself, again, very hard. And then another thing that got me in the military for probably the first time was depression, right? Is just the isolation. My upbringing was very different than the average person in the military, right? So like out of all even though me and my friends were into like drugs and alcohol and stuff, just the social class we came from, it was expected you were going to go to college. The majority of people I knew went to college, right? Like basically everybody after high school, they're going to college. I was like one of the only people in my school who went to the military and didn't go to college. So there was this pressure. There was kind of a sadness to me of my friends were, in my eyes, progressing faster than me, right? They're going to be in college. They're going to go on to have like their adult careers. And for me, the military was never going to be my something I spent the rest of my life in, just because, to be honest, the view would be it would just be below my capabilities, below what I grew up with, right? Like it's not something I would be proud of spending 20 years doing. So yeah. So anyways, but for me, that was the price of my addiction. That was the price of me getting away from all the bad things that I was in. So anyways, so I found myself drinking, partying. I found myself very depressed. And then again, God reached out, and I met this brother, Isaac. He was a military chaplain, or not he was a chaplain's assistant. So he wasn't the chaplain, but he was the assistant too. And he integrated me into this whole religious network amongst the soldiers, which was super nice. And they had like a ministry house, people would live, they'd do Bible studies every day, that type of track. If you don't know, it's just people who are very dedicated to getting to know the Lord. They read the Bible every day, they discuss it, they're planning their lives around serving God. So anyways, I got into that group, and it was exactly verse 5, which is the soil was shallow. So I took root in that community very quickly. Like within a month, I was just like in their life, right? I'm just like Bible study. I'm just like attending church. I'm like almost every day is like something to do with God is happening. And it was just, I guess, too quick, too shallow. And I just found myself falling away. Like probably, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. After 3 or 4 months, I just kind of fell away from it. And I don't even really know why, to be honest. I think what pulled me away, to be quite honest, was just a few times I didn't hang out with them. It was like, hey, let's go do this, and I was just kind of like, oh no, I don't feel like doing that. And I did something else, like I don't know, maybe play a game or maybe go out with some friends to a bar or something. I don't know what it was, but I fell away from it, and that's the point. Is like I don't even really remember what it is that made me fall away. So that was the second time God tried to save me. And then finally, fast forward a lot more, third time God saved me, and that's this time. And this time I'm confident that it's verse 8, which is the seed fell on fertile soil and produced a huge crop. Is when I was in Korea, what kind of the same thing started to creep back in. Not necessarily drugs and stuff, but I was using addiction, and this time the addiction was more games. It was more, it was mainly games. And then drinking kind of started to slip back in, but that was like, I was much more careful at that point. Once the drinking started to slip in at all, and I mean, it was less than a month of the drinking slipping back in, that was like I know where this can go. So anyways, that started to happen again, and that time another God sent another friend, another chingu, as Korean would say, another bro, and Namyoon is his name. So he sent him, and me and him just started to talk to God. By this time, I'd been primed. I'd been like, okay, I have these other experiences. God saved me. God stepped in. Now I find myself in this type of situation again. God sends another guy. Like, okay, this time it's going to be different. So this time I just took the initiative myself. And I shouldn't say took initiative. God gave me the desire. God gave me the power to dig into the Word. And I just started reading the Bible, and that's when I first started. And then one day, and this is where I guess it was different. So I started reading the Bible every day, and I just started you know, linear reading. I started at Genesis and I just started working through, chapter by chapter. And I hit a point where they talk a lot in the Old Testament about kind of following God's will through throwing lots. And throwing lots, if you don't know it, it's essentially flipping a coin. It's just some act of randomness, some way you do something random, and that can allow God to, exert His power and show you what His will is. So I started using that, and I literally started just flipping a coin. Or the thing I would do is even or odds. I would choose even, I would choose odd, and then I would look at the time on the clock, and if it was even or odd. So one example is I would ask I would kind of be like, should I go out to dinner? And I would just be like even or odd, and then I'd look, and that would make my decision. So I started that way. Then I would like flip coin, same thing, heads or tails. Should I XYZ? And I started doing that a little bit, and then one day I just felt that I needed to leave Korea, right? And leaving Korea was, that was a big deal because my wife is still in Korea. And leaving Korea basically meant like kind of not leaving my wife, like divorcing my wife, but it meant separating from my wife. So yeah, I remember I threw the lots, and it came up. God was like, "No, you got to leave, Alex. You have to." And then I was questioning that, but he the Lord came and He spoke to me, and He told me why, and He just told me like, if you stay here, you're not going to be making anything better, right? And throughout this last year, and it's crazy that it's been a year now, I've basically been on this walk for a year. But over this year, the Lord just kind of revealed to me is I laid the foundation of my entire life on sin and on just darkness, right? When I was in 5th grade, it started. I started building my life up around all these things, around drug, around addictions. Also, another thing that happened when I was in 5th grade is I found porn. That's the first time I watched porn. I think I discovered masturbating when I was like 10, but found porn at 12, and then that just took root too, right? And finding porn is what led to sex, because it's like once I started watching porn, then it was like, oh, I want to do this myself. Like, this must feel good, this must be nice. And then that's what led to me having sex at such a young age also. So anyways, if you look at my life since I was in 5th grade, I built it around those activities. I built it around all these dark things, right? And the things that I attracted to my life were these dark things. So over this last year, I feel like I've been tearing down a lot. I'm tearing down all the house that I built on this sinful, this weak foundation. I'm just tearing it all down, and then God's using Jesus as my cornerstone of my house, my foundation, this strong foundation. And I've basically been laying the foundation, and I only feel very recently that the Lord's starting to rebuild the house. Like, I feel like I've been working on this foundation for this last year, and only now is the Lord's kind of like, okay, we're going to start rebuilding things on this foundation a little bit at a time. So that's where I currently find myself. But and it's just kind of the 3 phases and the interestingness of it. And I just wanted to tie it into the parable, because I think a lot of the parables in life are very accurate. I had a thought the other day of, and I might be slightly wrong on this, but Shakespeare, I believe, said there's 7 like storylines, and I might be wrong about 7, but it's like something like 6 or 7. There's 7 storylines, like of a character progression in a story that people will find appealing, right? And I realized when I was reading through Bible I think it's same when you're coming to God, is there's similar storylines, right? You see a lot of the same things in the Old Testament, and one that's always stuck out to me in the Old Testament and then going forward into the New Testament was, it's very common that people put their trust in humanity, in their human power, instead of putting their trust in God, and it never ends up It never ends well. And then you have the other option, which is people who put their trust in God and they don't try to take things into their human hands, and things always end up good. So one example of that is walking around Jericho. So Jericho was a city and it had these huge walls, and the Lord told the people to walk around Jericho, and on the seventh time walking around, the walls just collapsed, right? But that's trusting God. An example of not trusting God is, I forget which king it is, but basically Israel was going to come under attack and from another country, and Israel had two choices. They could go to prayer, go to God, hey, save us, right, like you have many times, or they could reach out to other countries and try to basically hire mercenaries, pay the other countries to come protect them. And every time they did that, they would fail. They would become defeated. And the reason this sticks out to me is because I think a lot of my foundation that I've been laying is on that same concept, is on, hey, Alex, you can either rely on your own, what you perceive to be your intelligence, what you perceive to be all your gifts. You can rely on those things and you can get a career and you can make money and you can do all these things, right? Or you can rely on me and you can slow down your life. You can only do the things that I want you to do, that are pleasing to me. And it's for those reasons that I stopped streaming, I stopped making YouTube videos, I stopped programming, right? I stopped doing things that God wasn't giving me the desire to do. And I keep repeating this, by the way, this concept, because it's one of my favorite passages and stuck out the most to me, and it's in Philippians, and I believe it's chapter 2, verse 13. And it's, God will give you the power and the desire to do what pleases him. And to me, that's a very, very foundational concept. Is one of the downsides of free will is we can choose to do things that God has not given us the desire to do. And oftentimes, I think that more applies to achieving success, right? America is very much a prideful, success-driven culture. You want your status, you want to look good, you want to be smart, you want to go to the best schools, you want to get the best jobs, you want to make the money, you want to wear the nice clothes, you want to drive the nice car, right? So all these things are status symbols. They're all showing the world that I'm successful, I did things right. So a lot of those things, some people do those things because they genuinely love doing them, right? They would do them even if they weren't making money or being paid to do them, just because they love them. But there's also a much larger majority of people who do things because they're supposed to do them, and every single day of their life is using their discipline, their human willpower, to override the true desire in them, right? The true desire. And to give you an example is, maybe I'm an artist and I love painting and I do it every single day. I just go home, I paint, I work to buy paint, I work just so that I can have free time to paint. And so my love, the desire God's placing in me, is painting. But then every day I go and do something I hate, like whatever job it is. I hate doing it from the core of my being. I hate doing it, but I do it to pay the bills. I do it to do that. So that's what I mean by the difference between God giving you the desire to do something and you using your human willpower. As an addict, it also comes in, is if I'm an addict, you have two very simple choices. You either give in to your addiction or you don't give in to your addiction, right? So that to me was always the only choices, but then I learned of a third choice, which is trust God, right? And the way those three interact, and I think I'll finish this video on this because I feel like I'm kind of wandering, is if you have an addiction, and I'm going to use porn because I was talking about porn with somebody else, and it's actually been a concept, I don't know, like God just keeps putting me in positions to talk about porn with people, so I'm just going to go with it. But anyway, so porn, you have the option to watch or not to watch, right? You can either watch it, you can't watch it. Every time you watch it is not equal. There are some people who watch porn and they see nothing wrong with it, and that was me. That was me for 30 years. Okay, well, watching porn, 20 years. 20 years of watching porn. I never thought anything was wrong with it. I never, like, just nothing. Just absolutely nothing was wrong with it. It was a totally natural thing. I honestly thought people who don't watch porn are weird, right? Like, I was literally like, these are weird people. So there's that. But then now it's like, if I watch porn, I know that it's something I shouldn't do. I know that it's sinful. I know that I should, and I won't even explain the sin. I don't think it's sinful just because the Bible says it's sinful. The reason I think it's sinful is because of the people that it impacts, right? Like, all the performers, the people who are producing it, the people who are making money from it, the people who are spending money on it, the relationships that are being affected by it, right? The husbands that are being bad husbands, the wives that are being bad wives, right? The fathers and mothers that are being bad because of this influence in their life. Like, all those things are what make it sinful. It's not something that produces good fruit. It produces bad fruit. If you look at it, I challenge somebody to give me examples, like, and not outlier examples, like average examples of a way that porn makes people's lives better, right? It just doesn't. It's a bad thing. That to me is what makes it sinful, just not just somebody telling me, if that makes sense. Like, it's not some preacher like said it's sin and I just 100% went with that. No, it's the Lord has communicated these things to me, and yeah, it's just, he showed me, if you watch porn, it shows a lack of love for other people. And if people are interested in this, I'll talk about it more in another video. But that's the true essence of what makes it rough. But anyway, so when you watch, you can, so now I'm going to focus on the person who watches porn, but they know that it's sinful, okay? So you watch porn, you know that you don't want the addiction, you know that you don't want to watch it for whatever reason, okay? Then you also have two options of, okay, you can continue to watch it and trust God that he is going to take that addiction away from you, right? You can ask God, Father, please take away my desire. Please take away my power to watch porn and find enjoyment in it, right? You can make a prayer to that extent. You can go to the Lord and trust that he will take that sin away from you, that he will take that just that trap, that bad thing of life away from you. Or you can not watch it and just bear down. I call it white knuckling, which is I'm going to use my human willpower to suppress the urge. The urge is there, but I will never give into it because I'm just going to like clench down and fight the urge at all times. And yeah, so those are the two things. And I'm going to end with 2 points that I've come to on this subject is, one, I think you should always trust God. I chose to trust God, and so I did. For a while I was watching porn and I was trusting God to take the urge away from me, right? And anyways, come around is he hasn't taken the urge, but he has got me. I'm not watching porn, and I'm not watching porn for good reason. Like, for reasons, I'm not watching porn because I understand how it affects my love to other people. And it's out of like a good place. And I can talk about that much more in a different video because that's a long subject also. But, and sorry, I'm lost. That alarm, by the way, another just great habit is that I've picked up is I set an alarm for every 30 minutes. And some of you, when you're on the stream, you'll have it going off when I'm like in the middle of the game. But yeah, every 30 minutes. And it's just for me to remember to give thanks to the Lord for all things. And I've started to love it because it refocuses me all the time on, hey, am I living for the Lord right now, or am I doing my own thing, right? And I think you should never do your own thing. I aspire to always do only what the Lord wants me to do. Another reason I started shaving my head is same thing. It's just a reminder to me every time I see myself to be thankful to the Lord, right? I'm here for the Lord. I'm not here for other people. And like an example of this for me is, I look better with hair. I am a more attractive, charismatic guy when I have hair. But at the same time, that can become a vanity thing. So that again, it just kind of reminds me, like, every time I see it, just like be thankful. One, I have hair, and it's a choice for me, and all the other parts of life that are like that. And yeah, so anyways, that's kind of a side note. But I think I will stop this video there. There's so many subjects that I want to just dive into, and actually here is where I communicate with the Lord too. Is I just ask him, like, Lord, should I continue in this video? Should I end here for today and wait for another day to talk about the other subjects? And he says to me, yes, you should stop here. So then I stop. And I can make another video about how my interactions with the Lord go, like how me and God interact with each other. And for anybody who's on the fence, anybody who's just coming, I do want to finish by saying the number one thing that I encourage people to do is develop a relationship, a personal relationship with the Lord. Don't worry about finding a church. Don't worry about sermons. Don't worry about any of those things. Just worry about you forming a personal relationship with God where you can go to him as he is your father. You can ask him for advice. You can ask him for guidance, and he will respond to you. And I promise he will respond to you. And part of that is reading the Word, right? Like when you crack the Bible open, that's you're starting to communicate with God. And I used to read randomly, literally randomly. I would just go. So if you don't know where to start, just anywhere, right? And as soon as you start doing that, you're starting to form your relationship with God. And then you start speaking to him, and your speaking will evolve, right? My speaking, I told you, started with just randomness, flipping a coin, even or odds for the time, to where now, over this last year, he's been just guiding me, and our relationship's different now. Now I just ask a question like, hey, Lord, should I end this video? Yes. Should I talk about this? No. Should I do that? Right? And just, I hear it just like I'm talking to another person. So anyways, that's it. I'm going to stop there, but I love you all. I hope this helped one person out there. If it did, it was worth it. And I know that it did help somebody, or else the Lord wouldn't have me do it. But anyways, take care, and I will talk to you next time.